Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Abridged Biography of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Sirah Rasul by Imam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab At-Tamimi. The rebuilding of the Kaaba. When the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was 35 years old, Quraysh undertook the rebuilding of the Kaaba when it fell into disrepair. The scholars of the Sirah said that after the death of Ishmael, the affairs of the house were in the hands of his son. Then Jurhum ousted him, and it remained in their hands until they violated its sanctity and consumed what was given for it, and committed injustice against those who entered Makkah. Then after them, Kuzza took over responsibility for it, except that the tribe of Banu Mudar had responsibilities. The first, permitting the people to go from Arafah to Muzdalifah during the Hajj, escorted by Sufa. The second, the departure in mass from Muzdalifah on the day of sacrifice for Mina, and this was the responsibility of Yazid bin Adwan, and the last of them to hold this responsibility was Abu Sayyara, the dad. The deferment of the forbidden month, this was the responsibility of a man from Banu Kinana who was called Hudayfa. Then it went to Junada bin Auf. Ibn Ishaq said, when the Messenger of Allah reached 35 years of age, Quraysh gathered to rebuild the Kaaba, and they were concerned to provide a roof for it, but they were fearful of demolishing it. It consisted only of rows of stones stacked higher than a man's height, and they wanted to raise it and cover it with a roof. This was because some people had stolen the treasure of the Kaaba, which had been placed in a well inside the Kaaba. Meanwhile, the sea had thrown up a ship in Jeddah belonging to Roman merchants, which had been sheltered, so they took its timbers and used them to roof the Kaaba. There lived in Mecca a Coptic carpenter who prepared for them what was utilizable from it. There was a snake which used to come out from the well of the Kaaba, in which offerings were drawn every day, and the sun itself on the well of the Kaaba, and they were afraid of it. This was because whenever anyone approached it, it raised its head, made a rustling sound, and opened its mouth. One day, while it was sunning itself on the wall of the Kaaba, Allah sent a bird to the snake, and it picked up and flew away with it. Quraysh then said, now we may hope that Allah is pleased with what we are intended to do. We have a friendly craftsman, and we have wood, and Allah has rid us of the snake. When they had decided to dismount and rebuild it, Abu Wahab bin Amr bin Aid al-Makhzumi took a stone from the Kaaba, but it leaped from his hand and returned to its place. Upon this, he said, O people of Quraysh, do not put into this building except what you have legally earned, neither earnings from prostitution or money gained from usury, nor anything acquired by committing justice against any person. As this, Quraysh divided up the work of restoring the Kaaba, and the side in which the door was situated was entrusted to Banu Abdi Manaf and Zahra. While they lay between the black corner and the Yemeni corner, was the responsibility of Banu Makhzum and some tribes from Quraysh who were attached to them. The rebuilding of the back of the Kaaba was assigned to Banu Jum and Banu Sam. The responsibility for the side in which they lay the stone was given to Banu Abdi Nar, Banu Asad bin Abdul Uzza, and Banu Adi. And it was this wall which was falling down. People were afraid of demolishing the Kaaba, but Al-Walid bin Al-Mughira said, I will be the first of you to begin demolishing it. And so he took a big axe and began to demolish it, saying, O Allah, we never deviated from your religion. O Allah, we intended only to do good. Then he demolished from the side of the two corners. That night the people awaited, saying, if anything befalls him, we shall not demolish anything of it, and we shall return as it was. But if nothing happens, then it means that Allah is pleased with what we have done. Early the next morning, Al-Walid resumed the demolition work of the night before, and the people demolished with him. They continued the demolition until they reached the foundations. The foundation of Ibrahim alayhi, which consisted of green stones which looked as if they were interwoven with each other. One of them inserted his crowbar between two stones in order to force one of them out. But when the stone moved, all of Makkah shook, so they left the foundations alone. أي نعم أيوة. The tribes of Quraysh collected the stones in order to rebuild it. each tribe collecting them and then building one alone until the building was elevated to the level of the black stone. Then they fell into dispute regarding it, each tribe desiring to lift it into place. They carried on their disagreement and went so far as to form alliance and prepare to fight each other over it. Banu Abdiddar brought a container full of blood, and Banu Adi bin Ka'ab made a covenant that they were prepared to die for their honor, and they plunged their hands into this blood, and they called it Laka Adam. Quraysh remained thus for 4 or 5 months. Then they gathered in the mosque and consulted one another. Some writers have claimed that Abu Umayyah bin al-Mughira bin Abdullah bin al-Amr bin Makhzum al-Makhzumi, who was at that time the oldest of all the Quraysh, said, let us all agree that the first man who enters through the mosque door will arbitrate between you. So they agreed, and for the first person to enter was the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When to him, they say, this is Amin, this is Al-Amin, we accept him, this is Muhammad. Then he reached them. They informed him of what had happened. He said, bring me a garment. It was brought to him, and he took the cornerstone and placed it on it with his hands. Then he said, لتأخذ كل قبيلة بناهية من الثوب ثم أرفعه جميعا. Let each tribe take a corner of the garment, then all lift it together. This they did it until they had lifted it up to its place. Then he pushed it into its place with honest hand, peace and blessing, praise and blessing of Allah be upon him, and they continued to build over it. During the building, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had moved the stones with them, and they had placed their lower garment over their shoulders. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ did likewise, but he fell on the ground. That is, he fell on his face, and there was a call, cover your private part. After that, his private parts were never seen again. When they had reached the 15 yards, they placed a roof over it with six supporting beams. The Kaaba had been covered with the Kabati, then it was covered with the Barud, and the first person to drape it with a brocade was Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. Quraysh had removed the stone due to a shortage of funds, and they raised the door of the Kaaba from the ground so that none could enter it save those whom they wished. And if someone desired to enter it whom they did not wish to enter it, they will leave him until he reached the door. Then they will stone him. When he reached the age of 50 years, Allah sent as a bringer of glad tidings, warner, and a caller to Allah by his permission, and a guiding light. Not the age of 50 years, but the age of 40 years.